I'm like, holy smokes.
I don't know if that's absolutely necessary.
Oh,
my
I'm
God, we're
okay
all
with that,
over the
actually.
place.
No, that's too moody.
In the dark.
That's
Try that.
It's like a nice
Yeah,
evening with
sorry.
a tea.
We're
My
not,
laptop's like
we're not
going with
whining
it.
and dining by the,
That's right.
Let's just get through the meeting.
Let's get through this.
Okay.
Then the lights can go off.
are we
So
on?
we're- Special
Okay,
meeting?
we're on. So I'd like to welcome everybody back after our little short moment to the special council meeting of October the 21st. And I'd again like to acknowledge the land on which we gather, the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa, the Silks and the Snuneymuxw people, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. You honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. I received no late items before the meeting, and I would like to actually ask for adoption of the agenda as amended, because we actually don't have to do number 5. These meeting minutes have already been approved at a previous meeting.
Move.
Thank you, Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Page. All those in favor of adoption of the agenda as amended, eliminating item number 5, great. Thank you so much. So then moving right on to number 6, permissive bylaws. The community charter allows council to exempt land improvements from property taxes by bylaw before October the 31st each year. The City of Nelson's policy grants permissive tax exemptions, PTEs, for 4 years to non-city owned buildings and 10 years to city-owned properties. During PTE deliberations in 2024, it was unclear how the recent subdivision and sale of adjacent golf course lands for development would impact eligibility. Therefore, a PTE was not provided. In 2025, the course remained open to the public, but was subjected to taxation. For the 2026 year, council is requested to consider a 1-year PTE for the society's portion of the golf course land. This does not include any lands held for development. So we've had some previous discussion on this, and there's a backgrounder that's available there, and there are recommendations. So I'm open to either some discussion first, or if somebody wants to move the first recommendation and then discussion.
I'll move
Councillor
first.
Woodward
First.
moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Tate. Okay, that's been moved in second, so I'm
Can just give a little bit of information. We
Yeah.
did meet with AmNACV to determine where they're at in terms of the course and the development. He has shared that at this time, the developer is not going ahead with the larger development. Sounds like they may pivot to housing that more fits with sort of the goals of the community on that first phase. And there's no, there'll be no development of the golf course in 2026 for sure. And unclear what that looks like going forward, but that's the plan at this stage, is to look at developing that smaller parcel, the 3-acre parcel that has already been rezoned for housing, and the golf course will be run by the nonprofit for definitely 2026, and they're not sure what that looks like beyond that at this time.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. So, if the golf course redevelopment doesn't go ahead, it really kind of changes the whole dynamic of what the agreement was.
So there's they do have an agreement that expires if things don't happen in a certain period of time. So we can't say what's gonna happen beyond 2026. All we know is the current plans, and they're still looking at that larger 16 or 13-acre parcel, and what they proposed for that is unclear at this time. They want to move forward on the 3 acres and develop housing on that in the short term, and the golf course will not be redeveloped in the short term. They'll be run as it is now by the society. Thank you.
Councillor Lockenberg, Councillor Tate, Councillor Payne.
As it stands now, I'd be voting against the recommendation.
And yet open to hear other arguments for it. I'm not sure what the arguments for it are. That part isn't clear to me, like why we would do this. In part because the baseline I'm starting with is we've got many demands on the tax dollar. Some of them that we've heard recently are significant. And so what we're asking here with this permissive tax exemption is for the taxpayer to subsidize an amenity that's used by a small fraction of the population when there are many such demands from many organizations. So my policy personally, and I think we've talked about this more generally, is to try to get to equity. Like when we're considering subsidizing a group, whatever the group might be, we're considering it for its contribution to the common welfare. And I don't know what the argument is here. Like, why are we arbitrarily picking this group and giving them a special favor versus many of the other groups in the community that would love the same subsidy? And it is a subsidy. It's a direct taxpayer subsidy. We're asking taxpayers to give part of their dollars to support a club that serves only a very small fraction of the community. Now, I understand that the part of the argument here is that the community has some benefit from the golf course in terms of its use as a park, but that's not a gift from the Granite Point Golf Society. That's a 106-year-old golf course that is as much owned by the taxpaying residences as it is owned by the members of that golf society. That's an asset that belongs to the community and is currently stewarded by the Granite Point Golf Society. They don't own it, and they're not providing, I would argue, a benefit to the community as a favor in exchange for the tax exemption. So it just doesn't make sense to me. Now, if it's about giving the golf course society or Granite Point Golf Course Society a lifeline because they need it, I would really like to hear what happened to the $500,000. From what my understanding is, they have $500,000 that is earmarked to do development of the course. So, but there's essentially, if that's the case, and that's what the reporting in the news is saying, and that's what they've said to others when we were sitting there at a previous meeting, then again, what essentially they're arguing for is, well, we've got $500,000 over here. We would like an additional, some tens of thousands of dollars from the taxpayer to further supplement that $500,000 that we already have to do future development of the course, to like build out the course for the benefit of the members of the golf course. So again, the argument, why would the taxpayer subsidize the golf course, the players of the course to do that? Like, I don't see the argument. I'm not saying that there isn't one, I just haven't seen it.
I don't wanna, just legally, it is their land, and they could make it private. They could prevent the public from going on their private land, so.
Technically they could,
So
but
I'm just saying,
in the
just from
spirit,
a legal point of view, that is.
my argument is not, just to be clear, because this is a response to my argument, I just want to clarify, I'm not making a legal point of
No,
view.
I get it,
argument.
I just wanna be clear
Their
that-
responsibility as citizens who are stewards of a course on behalf of the residents of this city
I think that's,
is the argument I'm making.
I think that's the argument they're making, is they pay for the cutting the grasses and maintaining the pathways and all those things that if that was a city park, we would pay for, right, a substantially greater cost. So I think from a value for the community, that is a very cost-effective way to provide green space for the city. So I think that's what they're suggesting is
Right.
happening there.
And if I may, if that's the argument, then I would respond back that, is that the best and highest use of that land? Clearly not, because we would not keep it as a golf course. If it was handed back to the taxpayer who really are the rightful owners of that land, effectively, I would argue again, we wouldn't keep it as a golf course. We wouldn't be paying, the taxpayer wouldn't be paying to upkeep it as a golf course. We would begin to return it to, in part to nature, in part to other uses, in part to potentially housing and other things.
Yeah, and that's true, but if we had it as any type of park, we'd be spending
Yeah,
two,
fair enough.
300,000
If
a
we
year.
were keeping it strictly as a park, we would be
Yes,
spending
not as a
more.
golf course, but as a park, it
Yeah.
would be, 200,000 or 300,000 a year we'd be spending on that green space.
That's the value proposition,
Yeah.
is that all the maintenance that they do, and it is their private land, right? So it's not like, I think it was donated back in the day by a couple of large landowners, right?
Yeah, who got it under.
Yeah,
We don't need to go all the way back.
Yeah.
okay, so anyways, yeah, their
150.
value proposition is that they do that upkeep. And for that is, they're looking for that PT, so that their, trails are maintained, people can use it, it's that's their.
Yeah, I know, that's literally what I said. And I said that if you're asking the taxpayer is this the subsidy that we would do? I would say, one, we don't know, cause we're not doing an apples to apples comparison, we're cherry picking, we'll subsidize this, we'll subsidize that. And I think what we've tried to establish is that we wanna get to a place where we're comparing across the board, and we're comparing the subsidy that we would provide to the Granite Point Golf Course Society alongside all of the other recreational groups in the community, as opposed to just cherry picking one and then cherry picking another.
Well, we do, we're, I don't know any recreation that's paying taxes, probably because most of it's provided by local government. I guess a private gym would be. It's private, the public can't walk in there and start using the equipment or wander around the gym, so I don't know if there's any recreation activity that's strictly.
But to be clear again, the what they're getting already, just out of there, is a massively reduced tax rate, massively reduced.
Yeah,
So they're getting a huge benefit already, and then what they're asking for is an additional benefit on top of a massively discounted tax rate. So when we had this argument or this discussion in the past, and we were looking at PTEs, we were recognizing that the Granite Point Golf Course Society already gets a huge tax break
Well,
already.
they're not getting a special rate, just to be clear, that's just the rate.
I'm not saying they're getting a special rate.
Yeah, that's the
By
rate that-
virtue of the nature of that activity, a golf course, they
Zoning.
already have.
Zoning.
It's zoned as a park, for sure, but I could just as easily zone a gym as a park. And my point is, the fact that it's getting a massively reduced tax rate, by virtue, whatever the virtue is. Historically, the fact that golf courses have long had a privileged place in zoning and in society is one argument. But they already are. And I'm not arguing for them to get the highest and best use tax rate. I'm happy in exchange for the fact that it is publicly accessible, they get a massively discounted tax rate. That's the exchange I think is reasonable. The public, because if the public didn't have access, if there were gates up and fences up and saying, their tax rate would not be taxed as a park. They would be taxed at the absolute highest rate possible.
I don't know, they're in parks and rec, right, but I don't know if it would be a
No,
business.
what I'm saying is, if they had fences up and the public had no access and it was a private course, or any sort of private land, it would be taxed at a massively different rate. So the exchange they're getting for maintaining it and providing public access is a massively discounted rate. They wouldn't get that otherwise. So on top of that, they're asking for more. And again, I'm not saying no, but I am not seeing the argument for yes, given how many other asks we have. And if we were just to compare them,
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
move on. Counselor Tate.
Nope, I wasn't next.
Yeah, you were.
Nope.
And then I've got Counselor Payne. Okay,
I'll
I'll
go
go Counselor Page then, and then Counselor Payne.
Thanks for that. I think there are certainly subsidies and benefits that have flowed to those lands over time. Regardless, it does make me have the question first around zoning. Like right now it's zone P1. How much latitude do they have to throw fences up and private access through that land, given it's already zoning? Is that even an allowable use to have a private club up there?
I think it probably does fit our zoning for that, but we'd have to ask them.
Okay, and then that's my only question for now.
Councillor Payne.
I've looked at this from a bunch of different ways, cause I was trying to understand where the property originally came from, so we know it was not ours to begin with, but then it sounded like there were a number of wealthy golfing gentlemen who just created the club, and whatever land that was from, mining, logging, whatever, and it's gone forward. And then when they did the expansion in 1993, I believe, to 18 holes from 9, there was a situation where they weren't profitable at that time either, and they had to the city bailed them out with $40,000 and got some land for Nelson Hydro. So it was sort of a win-win, but it was fortuitous for them that the city was in that situation. So I'm just trying to understand when the golf course has been a profitable entity, and I know they're not for profit. Is this something that they're only hanging on, and now we know they've sold off land again to the developer to maintain their not-for-profit operational business. So are we just facilitating this ever downward fall of an organization with taxpayers' funds? I did look further afield. Cranbrook subsidizes 50% of their golf course, because they look at it, and this is what I heard when we were up there. I did live in Rosemont. I did not walk on the golf course lands in the summertime because I heard that that was not welcome. But I do know a lot of people go there in the winter, so it sounded like a seasonal operation for me. So when I saw that Cranbrook was doing 50%, I thought, oh, well, maybe that makes sense, because I have heard a lot of people going over there in the winter for cross-country skiing, walking. I didn't know there were, like, I personally wouldn't want to be walking around a golf course when golf was being played,
Yeah,
because
you can't walk around it when it's been
Yeah.
played. You can, there's lots of, I can tell you, I live there, so there's lots of walkers in the morning before the hole starts. Lots of walkers in the evening after golf ends.
yeah, so even that sounds like a time-limited
Yeah,
use of it.
Yeah, you can't be
So summertime doesn't sound like a full-on. So that was a bit of the compromise that I came to in my mind, of thinking that, well, maybe in the wintertime when the snow is there, I have taken teenagers up there to try figuring out how to snowboard without any sort of instruction, just have fun on different days. And I know people toboggan there. That was as close as I could get to understanding why we should move forward with this. I did hear it said that they have $500,000 in the bank pending whatever, but I did a quick calculation on what that kind of money sitting in the bank would do, and it was sort of pretty close to $12,500. So I didn't feel a lot of empathy around increasing that either. So those are just random thoughts. I'm interested to hear what the rest of the group. 50% was as far as I could go in my mind because of the seasonal benefit to individuals, and I don't know how far afield that goes. Like, do people from Fairview drive over to Rosemont to go? Okay, that's what I mean. I don't have that.
Yeah, I can tell you, like, from a personal experience, that groups of friends from all over the town go up there all winter long.
Okay,
Cause it's one of the few places in Nelson, if you live anywhere in lower Nelson, there's not a lot of snow to toboggan on, right? It used to be, you'd go to Queenie Park, not a lot of snow there now, so,
anymore, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, cause,
Yeah, and I think it's also we tend to recreate in our neighborhoods, just like
Huge benefit for
all
them,
the
yeah.
people in Rosemont don't go to Lions Park to recreate, they recreate in Rosemont, right?
A lot of them come over, just saying.
I think it's interesting, if I may. I think it's interesting, the comment about maybe how it's welcoming to public use. Because there's being open for public use, there's some of the neighborhood knows to go in the morning and the evening, but like the way the trails interact with the streetscape, and these are obviously longer term conversations, but how does that integrate into the neighborhood in a way that you're invited, that it's clear that there's activities or play areas on the periphery where it interfaces with the neighborhoods, like that's how that would over time, over the long term, to me, constitute public use. But I think currently what we have is a club that predominantly is private, and then when it's not running, people know to use it for snow activities. But long term, if it's really embracing that value of being a public amenity, there's other pieces that would come into play, so that when you're walking around it, you led into a path that goes through it, that the lighting's appropriate, that it actually functions more like a park. And so that's a longer term conversation. I am okay with going ahead in what we're doing today for 1 year. I think this is a longer conversation. I'm not sure this is where, I'm not sure saying no to this at this moment cracks us into a bigger conversation. I don't think it necessarily does, but I think it still needs to happen. And I think we're at a space where the nonprofit is still operating the golf course, but I really worry I'm making a mistake in that presumption that we won't crack open that bigger conversation. So I guess, as you said, I'm not really making an argument for as much as I'm flagging my trepidation. And I do want to put one kind of concern. When we're talking about other people's operations and their monies and what they do and do not have, I don't, like, we shouldn't be doing that in a public meeting. I don't think that's fair. Just maybe something to steer the conversation.
Thank you, Councilor Page, and if I could just, you know what, there's 7 of us here, we're gonna make a decision on this. I just wanna caution that the Nelson Golf Club, good, bad, or indifferent, is not a private golf club. And I've heard a few people talk about the private golf, like the private people going to golf. It's a public golf course. It's like the Castlegar golf course. It's like the Balfour golf course. It's like the Cranbrook golf course. It is a public golf course. It is not a private golf course. It is not members only. It is open to the public. I have golfed at private golf courses. Nobody from the public gets to golf on a private golf course unless you know somebody that's paying the $30,000 a year for the golf fees. I mean, you're just not going there unless you're invited as a guest. So I just, cautionary tale, you might want to refer to it, that might be just a sprinkling of golfers in Nelson, or however you want to call it, but it's not a private golf course. It is a public course, open for anybody to come that wants to play golf. Maybe that's the, it's limited, but to play golf. So just be careful with the language a little bit.
Did somebody say it was private?
You've referred to it as a private group of people. He just referred to it as the private golf course. It's like, it's not private. I think there is a real distinction between a private golf course
Oh, for sure.
and a public golf course, and this is a public golf course.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I never said it was private, but, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Councillor Tate.
I'm trying to pull out the community value, the PTE purpose, the assessed value, the public use. I'm curious with regards to the assessment, BC assessment, while it is zoned park and the use is golf course, it's zoned
Recreation, Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation, and the use is golf course. Is that the same category as the golf course in Cranbrook, for example? They're gonna be assessed in the
Yeah.
same way by BC assessment?
I think we saw that if it was a not-for-profit public course, that it would be
Same?
that same class.
Okay, and so it's not really based on, I've heard before that the BC assessment bases some of their calculations on the amount of money that a business is making.
Yeah.
So they're not looking at how much money Cranbrook Golf Course or Granite Point Golf Course is making, it would be based more on the acreage.
It's a good question. I'm not sure how BC assessment assesses that class 8 property.
Okay.
Business, that class 6 is different. That would be what you're talking about, is looking at the revenue and generation of that business, but yeah, I'm not sure how the, not-for-profit recreation properties are assessed. And it's kind of the same conversation we were talking about with the municipal buildings too. Some of those
Yeah.
are that same class.
Okay,
But we do tax, so just to be clear, we do tax them full assessment on
Yes.
the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows that. We
yeah,
do-
this
we do-
12,000 is based on the 104 acres.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but we
That
do,
piece is now out of the,
yeah, well, now it's out, but I mean, we always tax
Yes.
before on,
true,
before all of the craziness happened.
Yeah.
We always taxed the clubhouse at full taxation because it has a bar and a restaurant and a pro shop and whatever, that was always, that was never in the
Okay.
in the PTE.
Okay. So we don't really have any comparables of like park type land where nonprofits are holding that space and requesting a PTE or being given a PTE. We don't really have anything else like this.
just it's like land only like this.
Yeah. I am curious with the zoning, if a better way to try to navigate this is with the use part of it. Right now, if it's just called recreation, I'm curious if we could drill that down a little bit. So for example, if some of the land got shifted from hole 18 to, I don't know, toboggan run or whatever, would that change the way we're looking at the different parts of it for the PTE? If it's truly public use, like a park, like a lakeside park or like a Lions Park? And so I'm just trying to tease that out in my mind, because I actually do see it as a really good benefit right now. I know, looking to the future, I hear the table talk about more housing and more this and more that and more other. But as the city grows and changes, you're also gonna wanna preserve some green spaces. As we know, in Uphill, things get so jam-packed, especially, in 50 years when the city grows and we're densifying, we're gonna be glad if we're keeping some like open green spaces and some park-only spaces. So even though maybe the best use could be, 4,000 houses at this time, we also need to be building a whole community around that much population. Having said that, I don't think we can talk about what the highest use would be in 5 years or 50 years and say that we're needing to apply that standard now. So I think we can only apply the standard now of what it can be used for now and what it is being used for now. And because of that, I think the PTE applies, and I think it's because of how it's working in practice right now. Now, I would like to somehow document the practice so that we could maintain that or have a way to extend it, expand it, confirm it moving forward, because the land is owned by the society and can be sold by the society, but it's sold with the zoning, right? And we know that when people buy buildings, they buy them because of their potential. And so I think the potential that it has right now is to be a really great public golf course and public access green space at certain times of the year. And so I do think the PTE applies as it is now. Moving forward though, how to maintain that and how to plan for that is more challenging. That's my thought.
I think that's part of perhaps why the recommendation has landed from listening to our previous discussions that we've had around this at 1 year, with the fact knowing that this conversation is nowhere near finished and is just at the beginning of its life, I would say, in terms of discussions and potential of what's going on there. Councilor Hockenberg, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna go to Councilor Panero because he hasn't spoken yet. And then I'll come back to you.
I kind of appreciate some of the points that Councilor Ochtenberg brought up. A lot of it based on, you know, the way that this was drawn up before, and it's since been changed slightly, but like the language around this place, I was quite surprised at in OCP, and it sort of speaks to this like special relationship that the community has somehow always had with this entity as a golf course. I mean, it was enshrined that it was gonna be a golf course, which is a bit strange. And so, I mean, or strange or not, but there seemed to be some sort of historical relationship or covenant with the community that this was gonna be a golf course for the community, and that the community wanted or needed a golf course, and that somehow, you know, the two were, that relationship wasn't questioned, and that's fine if that's true. But I think as part of, I think my understanding of that covenant or relationship would be that then the golf course is also thinking, the golf society is also thinking about the greater good of the community, and I'm not sure that that's been demonstrated lately. They seem to be just thinking about it, and I realize they are a public golf course, they seem to be wishing that they weren't in some ways. Whether it's because they want to make some more money or because it's not quite chic-y enough or what, I'm not sure what that reasoning is, but they seem to be making all the moves possible to make it as much like a private golf course as they can, and that's where all this course redevelopment talk came from, and this is where all the selling it off potentially to become Dubai or whatever, that also came up. And so my faith in the other side of that relationship is a little shaken, actually. And so I guess there's two sides to that, because even now with this, like it's just for 1 year, it seems to be an admission on their part that this doesn't have legs. And so what are we doing? Are we giving them what they ask for in the hopes that they will reciprocate somehow by, you know, facilitating something that benefits the community next year? Or, because I don't quite have that faith. And I don't think that, you know, whatever, 14 grand is gonna be the difference that they suddenly, you know, decide to think community might be when the chips are down next year. And so I don't know, like, what can they do, I guess what are the options? Like, if we say no, and that means that, you know, for various other reasons, like it's been pointed out, this golf course has sort of been non-viable at different times for many, many years. If that continues to be the case, or if that's the case next year, and what's the worst case scenario, and are we worried about that? Like, do they sell it to, I don't know, whatever it could possibly be, like a nuclear waste facility or something, I don't know.
They don't have zoning for nuclear
Yeah,
waste.
it doesn't fit the zoning.
Area E right next door.
But I'm not sure if people understand what I'm trying to say. Like, I think
Yeah.
you know, or is that goodwill? Is that why we're doing this, in the hopes that when everything blows up, it blows up in a way that's favorable for everybody? Or, because I don't think that we have that goodwill based on what's happened already. I think that they've sort of demonstrated that whatever works for them immediately is sort of what they're after. That seems to be the case, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's just not a special relationship. I think that's a regular relationship that you would have with a landowner. That's their prerogative, but like, there has to be some give and take. And you know, so yeah.
So, Councilor,
Exaggerations aside or whatever, I feel like I'm a little bit uncomfortable with subsidizing that, because I'm not confident in that reciprocation of that olive branch.
I just wanna ask staff, because you talked about they asked. I think this is us asking. This wasn't the golf course wanting 1 year, cause they would probably like us to put them in the cycle so they didn't have to worry about it. This is us based on the conversations that we've had in the community and with the golf thing, talking about, we'll just do it for 1 year. This is not the golf club asking us for 1 year. Because we spent a lot of time, I can tell you, sitting around this table for a long time. We had all kinds of crazy PTE time limits, and we have worked very hard to get them either into the 4-year window or the 10-year window, so that you weren't kind of doing Bob's PTE next week and Joe's PTE the week after that, and like it was crazy making, because PTEs are hard, and then you're always seeking that society value of what you're giving this for, right? And so this is now out of step, but that was, I think, the ask that came, and I'm pretty sure that's the direction that we'd sort of given to staff, come up with something that works. And so the 1 year, just to be clear, I think is our request, not, again, the golf club's request in terms of length of time for PTE, so that it can come back, so we can continue to have these discussions about where this property is going and what the potential is, given the fact that, you know, it's zoned as Parks and Recreation. As a result, it's got a low assessment because we don't assess things as highest and best use for every scrap of land that's out there. It's a not-for-profit organization. You know, there's all these things that kind of go into the discussion, but yeah, just to be clear, I don't think they asked for the 1 year.
That's a good clarification, because it does, that would mean that the writing is definitely on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
that.
The two things that we put in there was, yeah, cause you're right, Mayor, that they would like to, I'm sure, go.
They would like to have been back in this
End of the-
cycle, yeah.
Term, it was, let's make this a year, so you have the opportunity to evaluate this again, you know. And the other piece was that other kind of, not restriction, but condition that the course would have to remain open as a public course in order for this to apply. So if, say, in December, they inform everyone, hey, the course can be closed next year because we're doing development, or it's no longer public, then we could communicate with BC Assessment and let them know, okay, this no longer applies as a PTE, and they would make it fully taxable.
So it gives us, we do have sort of the control. They start putting up, somebody starts seeing them put up a fence, you don't have a PTE anymore. It's very clear. Like I actually just wanted, like, something else happens, I actually wanted like a drop dead. It's like, okay, you did that, okay, PTE's gone, we're charging you like now.
Right.
Was what I had suggested when we were at the golf course.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's a good clarification, and I thank you guys for that, but I still think I'm a little hesitant, just still, I guess, because of this very seasonal nature. Like, it would never occur to me to walk on the golf course at all
it's
during the summer, because it's, I don't know why, cause there's golfing.
Well, because it's dangerous.
Cause it's a golf course.
Cause 15 years ago, I used to play golf, and trust me, the golf balls were never on the green part, they were usually on the walking part.
Yeah, so the value as a public amenity in some seasons is definitely greater than others, and those seasons seem to be, yeah, it's a short amount of time, really. And I think there's so many organizations in town that do provide a year-round public good, and there's many other nonprofit associations that work with kids and are, you know, fully, like, not that the golf course doesn't, but they're hitting a lot of demographics that and we sort of do need somebody to pay taxes, I think, eventually. Yeah. Mostly in agreement with Councillor Wachtenberg, I think.
So we were going back, Councillor Lockberg, for our last couple of words, and then maybe we can try voting on something here, or?
Yeah, let's make a last pitch for, which is, I hear Councillor Tate and Councillor Page, and Mayor Morrison, that this is a kind of a 1 year thing. Let's kind of give them this lifeline now, but for a year and then revisit it. But we had all this information when we made the decision the first time, right? And we looked at the churches, we looked across the board and tried to establish some shared principle, some common principle about the PTs. And under that holistic view, we decided that the golf course didn't meet the threshold. In the same way we decided that church parking lots didn't meet the threshold, even though church parking lots are used for community good sometimes. It's not just parking for the congregation, sometimes they use it to host events, but we decided that, you know, if you're like the Granite Point Golf Course Society or a church and you'd like to come to the city and ask for a subsidy, then we can evaluate you alongside all of the other organizations that are doing the public good, and we can compare apples to apples. And what we decided we're trying to avoid doing as a council is not one-offing these things. It's not being like, oh, whoever calls us out to their meeting and has, luckily enough, through connections, has this.
Can we just clarify, cause that's not what happened last year, and that's why it's here?
Yeah.
Because we didn't do that last
So,
year.
yeah, last year, because of the recent sale and the fact that the developer had an option to actually develop the golf course lands in 2025, our understanding was there was a high likelihood this course was not gonna be open. So
Yeah.
part of the recommendation at that time was it doesn't qualify as a PTE if this course is being developed. That didn't happen.
Fair
and
enough.
It doesn't
That's the
look
only
like it's
reason
gonna
here.
happen in 2026 either. So that's the only reason why we thought it's probably worth another conversation, is because you didn't have perfect information at that time, and the information you have now is better.
Fair enough, thank you. The principle, however, stands, which is trying to avoid one-offing these things and trying to establish a common policy or common framework for deciding who gets these subsidies. And so that, especially when we're considering a golf course that already is subsidized, and historically golf courses, the reason why golf courses historically have these unique in North America, and certainly in North America, have these incredibly low tax rates is because they were the parks of the wealthy, the elite, and arguably that it did create green spaces in otherwise fairly dense urban centers, but those were like Los Angeles or Toronto or downtown Vancouver, not a small town surrounded by forests and mountains and green spaces. It was like just to try to create some additional green spaces amongst large urban sprawl. That's not the case here. And so, again, what we're talking about, this is the key point I think here, is that they have money that they have allocated for future development, right? That's sitting in the bank. And what they're looking for is more money on top of that. Given, granted, unexpected expenses that have arisen, for sure, but they do have the ability to cover that. If they then at some future point are strapped for cash, then it makes sense to come back or apply for grants through our READY program or other programs and make the argument alongside all these other great nonprofits that are also looking for support. But by kind of picking them to out of, because they're the ones who happen to be able to get to us or reach out to us, doesn't seem fair. And it does seem to kind of go against what we're ultimately trying to do, which is establish this standard framework. So I would just caution that they're not critical. This is not critical in this moment, that this money is going to make or break them. It kind of sounds like there's a bit of a tenor to that they need this to survive. They don't. When they do, they can come back and apply for additional grants if they get to that point, and then we'll have even better information to evaluate whether they should get public support. But it's not critical now. And I'm not sure why it's become critical or to us make this special exemption for them. That's it.
I know you want to be done, but that felt like new information to me that I want to clarify, if I may. And I think you touched on it, but it didn't bubble up. Do we look at the financials of other groups that request PTE and like, so for example, if there was, I don't know, a nonprofit that has a whole bunch of money socked away because they're getting ready to build something and they request a PTE and we say, no, you have money socked away, that plays into the question?
I mean, we look at more the funding sources that an organization receives, and one of the
Okay.
things we are always concerned about is if there's a downloading of those that funding, right? If you get provincial funding or federal funding and now you're looking for a tax exemption, perhaps the provincial or federal funder should just be paying the taxes rather than asking us to pay it. So we look at those kinds of things, but if you're right, if you've got restricted funds that you're stockpiling for a project that's coming up, that shouldn't really weigh into the fact whether you should be getting an annual tax exemption or not, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think a bit of a counterpoint to that, possibly. Like, so for example, if you picture another recreational group that's been raising money, however they did it, if they sold land or whatever, but they're raising money, it's not a federal grant, and they've been socking it away, and they've got a little stockpile of savings because they wanna do something with it. That wouldn't come into consideration with,
It would if you're doing a special meeting to do, like, this is a special meeting that was
Okay.
put on the agenda for them.
Yeah.
We're not doing it for anybody else at this point.
It's on, so I just wanna be clear here, Councilor Lockenberg, just be careful about how far you're moving on this topic. We're having this meeting because PTEs have to be done by October the 31st, or else this would have been on some other agenda further down the road. There is a time limit for PTEs for 2026. I also want to clarify that there was nothing there that said that council had to also go to the meeting that the golf course invited us to. There was no requirement there for us to attend. That was an invitation
Yeah, I
to,
didn't
and
say-
people went for a myriad of different reasons as well to that.
My point is, like, to be clear, is we're having this meeting about a PTE for the golf course, not for any of the other
Because all of the other
organizations.
ones are done, because last year, we just said it's getting redeveloped so they don't qualify.
So you didn't consider it.
We didn't consider it.
But there's no reason for us to be considering it. Why are we considering it
One
now?
reason is because you asked, because it didn't get considered last year amongst all the other ones, like it would have been, because we thought wouldn't qualify. That's the only reason it's here, and it's a one-off.
and they're 5-year cycles.
Or-
4-year
Yeah.
cycles, okay, okay.
So if we would have known what we knew today, it would have been on your table last year when you considered all the other ones.
So then, to be clear, what we know today that we didn't know last year is that,
It's gonna stay a public golf course.
sure, okay.
And it was a
That's
public
what you
golf
did.
course all of last year.
We thought it
So we're
was-
not giving them back the money they paid last
It's
year.
gonna stay a
No.
public golf
No,
course
no.
last year.
As soon as it would have been under private sort of tenure, then our understanding it wouldn't qualify for PTE. That,
Last year, the plans were that they were going to start construction this past summer.
Yeah.
So that's when it would have
On the
gone under.
housing.
no,
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 on the golf course.
They were gonna tear
On
it
the
up.
golf course.
They weren't even gonna sell.
Yeah.
They were working out how to sell for anybody who bought a membership, because they were planning on tearing it up in June.
Yeah.
They were said, buy your membership now, and then if you end up having to go and buy a membership at Balfour, we'll cover the cost for you to get your early bird. So they were that far along that they made this commitment that they thought construction was gonna start on the course this past summer. And so that's why it didn't even get brought forward to council to debate whether it gets
So
PTE
we
or not.
just to be clear on the timeline, when did we talk about PTEs last year?
Yeah, so it would have been in September,
As in
Yeah.
a year ago,
A year ago.
September. And when did the
and they were,
trim-
they were told that, by
Yeah,
December
that was
31st of that year, they would receive notification the course was gonna be closed
in
this year, 2025,
This year, the course was supposed to
for
be closed.
development.
So the how
And when
how
I
long
say
was the-
development, when I say development, I should
course.
make sure that I'm not property development, but golf course
Sure.
development.
The Troon
Yeah.
part.
Redesigning the course, moving holes around, so you wouldn't be able to actually play golf there. Now, that didn't happen, the golf was open for people to use, and it will be open next year as well. So in that essence, that piece of property, nothing's really changed, so there was no reason to not consider it for a PTE. It should have had proper consideration on a level playing field as everybody else, and it didn't receive
It
that.
is like at the bottom of the spreadsheet. It wasn't at the top about the ones that we talked about.
He said it didn't qualify.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't
Yeah.
qualify.
So this gives it the opportunity to at least be considered on level playing
And so
field.
they did pay, so they did pay this last year. They paid the taxation, cause we
Yeah.
taxed them, and we cannot undo that.
No, for sure we can't.
Well, they did, I think, ask at some point whether or not we
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
undo it, but we can't undo it, so they paid
Okay.
it last year.
Pretend this is, you're back last year in September and this is on the table.
So back last year in September, this is on
On
the
the
table,
table,
we're comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
And we asked the question, given the things that we deny PTEs for, like parking lots for churches
Yeah,
and other things.
Yeah.
For 107 hectares of land, 107 acres, I think. Is it acres or hectares?
Acres.
Acres, thank you. Forget which one's which.
Hectares would be large.
It'd be really big, it'd be the whole thing.
Yeah, it would be really big, wouldn't it? So for 107 acres of land, are we going to further subsidize this by an additional $11,000 is the question.
For 1 year, not on the 4-year
Yeah.
cycle. Okay, thank you for
Well,
clarifying.
that's our recommendation, but
Yeah.
you could approve it free
But again,
if you want,
sorry,
or 0.
just to be clear, given that, what we're saying, to be clear, what we know this year, that we didn't know last year, is that they do have money in the bank. Right, that's kind of important because
I think they did last
I think
year.
it's restricted funds.
I don't think it's restricted. According to what I've been told, it's set aside for future development. Of more,
Internally, yeah, I don't think any external party restricted it, but yes.
It's a grantor organization.
There's, I think, just because it's been brought up a couple of times, and maybe city manager, you might be able to provide some more insight. My understanding is there may be some cash left over, so when they did the expansion in 92 or 93 or whatever, they took on a deficit to do that. They never dug themselves out of that hole.
Yeah.
This sale, in its whole part, the 4 acres that were gonna be used for the townhomes, they got cash for that finally dug them out of that hole and got them cash positive. And they have a small bit of that, I think, left over for operating costs. The other portion was, should this big development happen for the other 16 acres, there would be more money there for the development. Cause I can tell you that, one hole cost more than $500,000 to develop, right? So it's not a lot of money on a golf course sort of basis, I guess, but just so we're clear that it's not like they're holding on to this $500,000 to redevelop the course.
no,
Those are two vastly different scopes, yeah.
And to be clear, that's never what I was saying. I was saying that they have money in the bank for the purpose of further developing the golf course. And what they're
Yeah,
looking for is
Replacing
additional,
their capital assets, they have
Yeah.
golf carts and
They have the
and
clubhouse.
clubs and
Yeah.
and a building, and I think that's what they have that money.
And sprinklers that all need work, they have quite a lot of work that's
All
required.
those sorts of things, that's what this money they have is, that's what they want to use that money for. They're trying to keep the operation that pays operating costs, and this to pay the capital costs of all those maintenance things that we were talking about with our own assets, right? Yeah, that's where they feel they are financially.
so then one of the things that was raised, and this was raised by AMNACV as well, was the question about what else is it? What else would it be for? And the opportunities for developing a series of community assets, including golf, not saying golf can't be there as well, are vast. There's so many things. There's a soccer dome, there's the beginning of a gondola up Morning Mountain, there's high ropes course, there's frisbee golf, there's mini putt, there's a driving range, there's so much that can be done. 18 holes is not the best and highest use of land if it's not of the quality that people want to golf at. That's the problem. If it was a world class or even a great regional class golf course, then there would be an argument. But they themselves have said that the golf course, they're losing membership. People would rather go to Castlegar and Belfort. So if they themselves don't think they've got a great golf course, and the only way to make it a great golf course that can survive is to bring in Cornet and Troon to turn it into a world-class course, and since that's not happening, then what's the trajectory here? Like, are we, even they that haven't made the case for what it could become, and so it just seems to me like we should not be asking the taxpayer to subsidize something that doesn't seem to have a future in the way that they themselves can argue for. Like, they didn't make the case, and they even said that, we don't know, this was our shot, and it's not likely to happen. So, okay, anyways, I'm done, sorry.
Can we gonna call a question, Counselor Page?
I'm okay with voting for this for a year, but what I wanna do is this being a public golf course, and in other examples we've raised, that's run by a public entity. This is a nonprofit running a public golf course with the caveat that will remain for public use, which needs, I think, some clarity around public access for walking after hours and the development that goes with that. And or the fact that just any member of the public can join the club and partake within this public golf course. What I'm missing here to the business case piece, and why I would vote for this 1 year, is to kind of open up and maintain the good relationship to develop, is what is their strat plan? Like, if they're gonna come in a year and wanna be on a 4-year cycle or a 10-year cycle, what is their strategic plan as the golf course for the lands? And because they're maintaining this public value, how are they incorporating the public into their planning process for their strat plan, for what they're doing with a golf course? Like, there's this intermingling that I think is appropriate, but at times it's kept quite separate, and it's only an intermingling of convenience. And so I think where we need to be putting some of the pressure over the next 12 months and further is how well is that strategic plan developed with not only the golf course in mind, but the public largely for so there's a real plan for that area, because otherwise we are just kind of plodding it along, and it utilizes to a certain effect, but maybe not to the best or greatest or most diverse and imaginable effect that could really carry it. And I think having participated in that meeting and having a little bit of that trust lost is, I think there needs to be a coming together between their leadership and the leadership we're providing, that the public has a greater say within the development of that strategic plan. And that's gonna give me the confidence into the future, God willing, I'm still around here, to say that this is something I would say you can have for 4 or 10 years, but right now, I don't see that vision, and I don't see that they're generating that strat plan, and I would love for us to use some of the next 12 months, creating some of that pressure for them to develop a plan that has the community on side, and may incorporate many of the great ideas that Councillor Lautenberg has floated around as to help our imaginations grapple with what could be. But I just wanna make sure that we're doing this in a way that the leadership of the golf course is hearing, and that we're kind of holding their feet to the fire to like bring the public into your planning process. So if you are gonna end up having to continue to maintain it, and all they got out of this was a removal of that debt liability, that the next iteration of this is really getting more diverse, having more opportunities for the public to engage within the site, and not being so exclusionary to the use of golf particularly, which I think is what we've now put into the OCP. So that's the body of work I see ahead, so I would say yes to this for this year, having stated that that's where I see us going over the next 5 years.
Not our job.
You move
I
that?
disagree.
You move that?
Yeah, well, it's already moved.
Well, no,
I
it's
think someone
moved,
moved
it's
it
already
second.
moved, the first, it's
called the
been moved
question.
and seconded. So,
So not our job.
the permissive tax exemption amendment bylaw number 3646/2025 be introduced and read a first and second time by title only. So that's been moved and seconded. And so the question's been called, so all those in favor? And opposed? Okay. I'll go with the, it passes.
For the first tie.
It's our second tie.
That's like our second tie and,
It's our second tie.
yeah, we haven't had very many ties. So does anybody wanna like, shall we just, do we need to have the debate again, or can somebody go on to 2? This isn't the last reading, but,
To do 3 tonight.
so the Permissive Tax Exemption Amendment Bylaw 3646 2025 be read a third time by title only. That's been moved by Councillor Woodward. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Tate. Any further discussion? And this will come back to us like,
At one of the budget meetings.
Budget meeting.
budget
Yeah, we'll
meeting?
come to
21st.
one of the
I
budget
think
meetings.
this Friday.
Well, no, cause there's a requirement, to post what the
Okay.
permissive tax exemptions are, and
Oh, okay,
so we'll have to do that in Thursday's paper, and then it'll come to you, I think, on like October 31st.
Halloween.
Halloween. Oh, well.
You dressing up?
But we'll,
We can
I
all
think,
dress up as
I think there's a
Gophers.
budget meeting on there. Is it the 31st? I think it's,
Yes, it
yeah.
is. I didn't know if we were supposed to come in costume, so give me a heads
Supposed
up.
to come as each other.
Anyhow, so, it's been moved and seconded. I
Steve,
see no further
Take your
discussion.
red.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Did anybody want to be recorded as opposed? Sorry, I'll take it on this one. Yeah,
Take it on this one.
everybody? Everybody that's opposed? Okay. So,
I think it's important.
okay, and that's been recorded, and I think I can ask now for, if there's no recommendations, well then, those are recommendations from staff, no late items. If I could have a resolution.
Weren't we supposed to do that 3 times? That wasn't the third.
It was first and second.
First and
third.
second is
Oh,
one.
first and
One
second
and
are
two,
together.
then
Thank you.
three,
Okay, got
and
it.
then-
Thank you.
So if I
Wanted
could
to make
have
sure
a
we done.
resolution to adjourn. Okay,
See, out by 9.
yeah, maybe 9 somewhere, 9 in the, like, a 2-hour swim out into the Pacific Ocean.
Sonia, do I see?
Sonia, are we off?
That's the Jeff.